Hello, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, highlighting Syria's humanitarian crisis through the universal language of music. How one artist is using his piano to help Syria's children. Special opening music by a very special guest, the award-winning Syrian-American composer and pianist Malek Jandali. He is in the stream today. Welcome, Malek. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
You'll hear so much more from him in just a moment. But first, some backstory. So just sit back, relax. We're going to talk about you. Born in Germany and raised in Syria, Jandali found music at a very young age. His first performance was at the age of 8 in his hometown of Homs. After attending the Arabic Institute of Music in Damascus, he began a career as a pianist. A few years later, he left Syria for the United States after being awarded a music scholarship, and he's been here ever since. When the Syrian uprising began, Malek was one of the very first artists to publicly speak out against the regime. Since then, he's been using music to highlight the humanitarian crisis in his homeland, particularly when it comes to the plight of children. Through an international benefit tour called The Voice of the Free Syrian Children, he's hoping to put the spotlight on the millions of Syrian kids who've been affected by the ongoing conflict. Now, last night, Malika Bilal, digital producer, and myself, we went out to watch Malek play.
We did.
I know you're sitting right by him. Instant review though, no pressure.
No pressure, and not just because he's sitting right there. Well, as you put it yesterday, best homework ever. So I would say my instant review, 2 words: hauntingly beautiful.
Oh.
Of course. Today we've also got something special for you. We've got a special Google Plus Hangout. It includes Omar Effendem, Syrian-American hip-hop artist and activist. Ragad Mardini is a founder and director of the Art Residence Alley in Beirut. They offer residency and commission artistic projects for young Syrian artists. Hazami Barmada is a social entrepreneur and co-founder of Al Mubadara, an Arab empowerment initiative, and Amr Khawji is a Syrian activist. They'll all be taking part in our discussion with Malek Jandali, and you can too. Join our live discussion on Twitter using hashtag AJStream.
So let's get started. Malek, show me your pianist hands. Put them up.
Here they are.
Okay, and rotate them. I want to see how where is the magic made? Is it in your hands? Is it in your head? Is it in your heart? What makes you?
It's a combination.
Yeah?
You have to be just truthful. Just love what you do and do what you love. It's as simple as that.
See, I played the piano when I was a kid, and I was terrible. I was a terrible pianist. So when did you know that you were actually good, or when did your parents realize you were good?
Actually, I was the one who told them I want to be a pianist in Homs. So
how old were you?
Maybe around like 6, 7 years old. We used to go to concerts all the time because I was born in Germany. And then when we moved to Syria, we used to go to all those classical concerts.
Right.
And I always dreamed to be on stage. I want to be that pianist. And then later on, with discipline and academia, I wanted to be the composer, not just the pianist who is performing the music. And it's just a great combination to be a composer and a pianist, and that's what I love to do.
So how many piano players were there in Homs? I mean, you had to go to piano classes. You couldn't go to piano classes in your home city. You had to travel a while, right?
Absolutely. We did not have a music school in Homs, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I had to travel to Damascus on a weekly basis to get my 1-hour piano lesson. That's how much I loved piano.
So I've been finding out online, I've been watching a lot of your work. I saw you play last night. There are a lot of people who know who you are, who are huge fans of yours, but also there's an audience out there still to be familiar with you. So I want you to work out on a scale of 1 to 10 how famous you are in Syria. So I'm going to ask you not to be modest and be honest here. So 10 is Michael Jackson famous. Where are you on that scale of 1 to 10?
That's really a question not to be addressed by me. I mean, I'm just a regular Syrian citizen who is doing Syrian art,
right,
to give the voiceless a voice. So I don't know.
We know that phrase. We love that phrase at Al Jazeera. I am going to show you a picture that I tweeted out of you last night. I was watching you play, and there's something very different when we meet you and you're very charming and very amiable, and then you get on stage and something incredible happens when you start to play, and it works in terms of men stopping talking, women stopping talking, watching you. So I'm wondering, in terms of groupies, what are your groupies like? People who just are amazed by your talent.
You know, once you step on stage, it's a big responsibility. You know, especially with this historical times. We are really witnessing historical times today. As we are having this discussion, we have children being tortured and starved to death. And it's a big responsibility as an artist, especially as musicians. I think we are so lucky because we can cross through the social politics, we can cross through all the barriers and go to the humankind heart and speak to the heart through a universal language, which is music. And once I go on stage, it's a big responsibility to be the voice of the free Syrian children. And they are serious from day one. Their voice hasn't been heard according to what they are asking for. What they are asking for is just human rights, social justice, democracy, and getting rid of dictatorship.
I love how you sidestepped my question about groupies. I'm sure Yasmin, your wife, will be very happy to have that answer. Let me share the conversation with Malika.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned children, of course, and that you're being the voice of these children in Syria. We have a tweet here from Carrie, and she has a question for you. She asks, when you close your eyes and you play thinking of the children of Syria, what does your music express? And of course, as Femi mentioned, we were at your show yesterday, and you asked the audience to close their eyes as you played. What are you thinking in those moments?
It's mixed emotions. You know, I'm so sad by the humanitarian crisis these children are facing. Yet, I'm so humbled and proud of their courage and their perseverance and their peaceful resistance, as well as their, you know, their eyes were full of love and hope. When I crossed the borders and went into Syria, my whole aim and goal was to meet their, you know, to meet these children and shake their hands and look into their eyes. And what I saw the future of Syria. So when I close my eyes during my little concerts, I see these amazing children. I see the future of Syria in their eyes. And I'm just trying to give them a voice through my music. That's what I'm trying to do.
So we're looking at some of the pictures of your trip to Syria exactly a year ago, this October, during the Eid celebration. Tell us the backstory about how you got there and why you went.
Absolutely. You know, I went there for a simple reason, just to be back home. It's my universal human right to be
But it's
home.
in the middle of the revolution. I mean, I just want people to remember.
Absolutely.
So you wanted to be back home in the middle of the revolution.
Absolutely. I wanted to meet these courageous children who started the peaceful revolution for freedom and human rights. And I crossed the borders as an American citizen. And I went to the refugee camps inside Syria. And it was a touching, historic moment for me. Do you know what I brought back with me? Some soil from Syria.
Really? Do you still have it?
Yeah.
Where do you keep it?
Back, you know, in my home, in my studio, I have like a bunch, you know, little
bits of soil from Syria.
I love it. And then, you know, I went with musical instruments. And I went with my tune, Syria, Syria, Anthem of the Free. And we sang. I stayed for 3 days. On my way back, in the middle of the night, what did I see? A bunch of kids in the middle of nowhere in the desert. What are they doing? Singing. Singing the Syrian peaceful revolution chants for freedom, human rights, love, peace. And it was so touching because nobody was hearing them. I took my camera, filmed them, and I joined them in this beautiful Syrian symphony for peace, love, and harmony.
Sure. What's interesting is our community saying that's all possible because of art. There's a tweet here from Mikey who says, art can express to the world the emotional and mental and religious anguish of Syria in ways that defy verbal expression. But on this next tweet, I want to bring in our hangout because this person, Hajar, on Twitter, she mentions one member of our hangout. She says, I believe that artists like Malek Jandali and Omar Effendem, are successfully bringing international attention to the crisis in Syria. So Omar, I want to go to you because our community knows what you're doing, but for our wider audience, why don't you let us know?
Sure. Well, just to give myself a little bit of background, I'm a Syrian-American hip-hop artist. I was actually born in Saudi Arabia, and I've been living in the States for most of my life. And for the past couple of years, I have been traveling, touring all around the world, raising awareness and funds for the humanitarian crisis in Syria, similar to Malek. Our audiences are a bit different. Mine might be a bit younger, or perhaps people who are more into you know, hip-hop music and poetry and things like that. But at the end of the day, the spirit is the same, the message is the same, and the hopes and dreams are the same. And I can certainly relate to Malek when he says he closes his eyes and he thinks of the Syrian children. I mean, that's my biggest motivation as well.
When you go onto stage, you said that you feel you have a responsibility as an artist. But the Syrian conflict has been going on for 2 years. So at some point you found your voice as an activist. When did that happen for you?
You know, we need to differentiate between art as an entertainment and art as art.
What are you doing right now?
I'm doing both.
Okay.
But you know, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to convey a message, because what I think art is all about is the search for beauty and truth, like journalism. You know, the late Marie Colvin, which we honored in the New York concert just a few days ago.
And just to remind our audience, Marie Colvin was a journalist who died very tragically in Syria. She was, I believe that where she was reporting from was hit by a rocket.
Absolutely.
And she was the journalist, you may remember, she used to report with an eye patch. So I'm sure now everybody remembers who she is.
Absolutely. She lost her eye in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And she sacrificed her life in my hometown in Homs in Syria for the Syrian children. She was searching for beauty and truth. And that's my journey. I'm searching for the beauty of the Syrian peaceful revolution and the truth of what's going on. What's going on is very simple. The Syrian children revolted for freedom and human rights peacefully, and they were just faced by a vicious war, by a vicious dictator who has
Malek,
been...
this is in the last 2 years. So you telling me you became this activist in the last 2 years?
Absolutely.
This person that we're hearing now didn't exist 3 years ago.
Absolutely, it changed dramatically. This is why the children are so inspirational.
Right.
I used to do music of, for example, you know, I always bring my Ugaritic.
You always bring it. I knew you were going to bring it. Now we're going to have to talk about it.
The oldest music notation in the world. That was an inspiration prior to the revolution, because I believe this is the first revolution in humankind history.
All right, we can't let this moment slip by. So
And
you're so predictable. Okay, so you have a clay tablet in front of you. Is it the real thing?
No.
Okay,
I hope not.
so this clay tablet was found in Syria. It's from 1400 BC.
Correct.
And it's got notation on it, which is apparently music.
Correct.
And you turned that into music.
Correct. It is the
and
oldest.
why do you take it everywhere with you?
I mean, this is the first revolution. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the world today without music, or without the alphabet?
What kind of music is that?
It's the music of my ancestors when they were free.
You are grinning like a crazy person. Let me play everybody what you turned that into. So if I play echoes from Ugarit,
Yes.
we'll hear this, right?
Correct.
Here we go. How did you even know that sounded like? I can only just believe you. I can't challenge that.
That's a great question. You know, I lived in Syria for 18 years.
Yeah.
Nobody ever told me that my ancestors in Syria, in Ugarit, 60 miles from my hometown Homs, for 18 years throughout high school, that my ancestor invented the musical note. This is how...
And the alphabet.
And the alphabet was pretty well known, but the music...
Yes.
You even go to the museum in Damascus, they don't even describe it.
Right.
And that's prior to the revolution.
Right.
Once the revolution started, by whom? By the Syrian children in Daraa. They were tortured to death.
Yeah.
And when the parents went asking for their children, the Assad thugs told them, go have other children. This is how anti-Syrians, anti-art, anti-music this regime is. So I changed dramatically through. It was a revolution in my soul, in my heart, in my brain.
So we're talking about the difference between the artists 3 years ago and the artists that we see in front of us right now. Yeah.
Completely different artists.
Wow. Malika.
There's a question here, or a statement rather, from Enes on Twitter, who says the best thing that you did, that Malek did, is that he stayed an artist and not a politician. So of course, that leads us to a conversation about how this conflict has been politicized. And I want to go to our hangout, Hazami Banrada. You work on Syrian issues, of course, here in DC, and you focus on Syrian children.
Well, yeah, I think my focus is on public affairs. It's how do we really humanize what's happening in the region and not politicize the children themselves in our efforts to be active on their behalf. And we tend to accidentally do that at times. And I think the power of music is that you do transcend beyond political boundaries, you transcend beyond cultural and linguistic boundaries. And I think that's crucial to get to the heart of the American people. Malek, I want to actually ask you how you feel the audience reacts to you in America, but I want to quickly just contextualize really quickly. When you're looking at the Syrian population and you keep hearing of numbers, I think it's really sad to me that we've reduced what's happening in Syria to numbers and statistics. But Syrian population is 22 million, and if you look at 2 million refugees would equal 34 million refugees in the United States based on the population ratio. 6 million Syrians are currently in need of help would equal 85 million people in this country in need of help, which is the entire populations of California, Texas, Florida, and New Mexico combined. So how do you feel like American audiences interact with your music and react to it?
You know, that's a big responsibility. I think one Syrian child is way too many. I know, I always talk about humanizing the situation, and numbers to me, one Syrian child is way too many. Through my concerts, I try to raise awareness and focus on the Syrian children through my music. And I refuse to,
Is that because that's the easiest way to actually reach people who can quarrel with young children suffering?
It's not really the easiest, it's probably the hardest, because you have to be so truthful and focused and don't deviate to like politics or religion or that, because the Syrian children I'm humbled and honored to speak on their behalf. If you ask them what do they want just freedom, human rights and justice.
So Malek, let me just ask you about you becoming an activist in the last 2 years. It's not without danger. You performed in the US, a beautiful song, the song that we started with actually, and after you performed that, your parents' home was ransacked and they were attacked. I'm just going to warn our audience actually that the pictures that they're about to see are from your Facebook page. Here's a picture of your dad. It's not, he was beaten up, so I just want people to know this is your dad, and then this is heartbreaking to see your mum. And this was a direct result of a concert that you played to draw attention to the plight of youngsters in Syria. Can you go back to that day when you found out, and what was that like? Is it worth your family being beaten up?
It was the beginning of the Syrian peaceful revolution, and what I was trying to do is to just join that peaceful revolution in front of the White House, again, to speak on behalf of these Syrian children. And that's how powerful music is, the soft power of art. And the consequences was beating up my mom and my dad thousands of miles away, across the oceans. That's how powerful music is. Can you imagine we still are affected by the music of Beethoven or Ugaret? It has been 200 years since the death of Beethoven. So when I played from my heart to the heart of the Syrian people and the Syrian children, that vicious regime rejected and felt threatened even by, I would say, the epic of freedom, which is music. We can't see music, we can't even touch it. It's in the air everywhere, yet it's so powerful because it touches the heart. And all what I said is, I am my homeland, and my homeland is me. My love is fire in my heart for you. When am I gonna see you free? The word free, we still have Syrian artists who reject the word freedom. We still have people in Syria who still support the war criminal instead of human rights and freedom.
So you are political, really?
Excuse me?
You are political. You do have a particular stance here.
I mean, I'm a human rights. I'm asking for freedom and human rights for the Syrian children. And I'm asking my fellow artists in Syria and outside Syria to speak up for those children, for human rights, justice, and democracy.
Speaking of those fellow artists, we actually got a video comment from Tamam Azam, who is an artist who's now in Dubai, but he's Syrian, from Damascus. It's subtitled for those of you who don't understand Arabic, but have a listen to this.
ربما اعتدنا على عبارات من قبيل أن الكلمة أقوى من الرصاصة أو أن الفن يولد من المعاناة. اليوم أنظر إلى ما يحدث في بلدي فأرى كم من النفاق الذي نعيش به. الفن موقف شخصي يعبر عن الحالة التي يدعمها صاحبها لا أكثر. للأسف لا يستطيع الفن اليوم إيقاف الموت في سوريا. شاهدنا كما كبيرا من المثقفين حول العالم الذين يدعمون الثورة السورية، ولكن هل أوقف هذا الدعم الموت في سوريا؟ الجواب واضح فيما نراه بشكل يومي في سوريا.
So I want to turn to our hangout with this. Ragad, you heard in that he said, unfortunately, art cannot stop death in Syria. Now, you've opened up an artist residence in Beirut. You're from Syria also. What are your thoughts on that? And do you have a question for Malek as well?
Yes. I want to say here that we are, as Syrian people, we are not just numbers of coffins and of dead people. We are a living nation still. And this generation is fighting death with life. And I opened this project to emphasize on this and to put light on the talented young generation who has a lot of talent and a lot to different from what the media likes to show about the violence and all these extremists. We are peaceful and we are talented, and we have a lot to say and a lot to show the world. And I want to comment on Malek, what he said, that children of Syria, they want freedom, democracy, and justice. I want to say that the children of Syria, they just want homes and school and food. It's the basics. It's simple. It's not those big words the media likes to talk about. It's just everyday life. I know many of the Syrian children who don't go to school because they don't have the costume, which costs only $10. So how can music help in this?
It's a great question. You know, throughout history we learned that art is so effective, and we learned that music has been so powerful in transforming and supporting revolutions throughout history. So how can music help these children? This is what we are trying to do through my tour, The Voice of the Free Syrian Children, raising funds, raising awareness. We all know that we are coming to a harsh winter, and people are gonna face a very severe cold winter and starvation and lack of milk and medicine and basic needs. And that's my responsibility as a human being, before being a Syrian artist, is to do whatever it takes to save one Syrian child or one child. And
how many children do you think you've saved so far?
I mean, I don't really like to quantize and say 10 or 50. You know what I'm trying to do my responsibility as a human being. Saving one Syrian child is enough for me, whatever it takes, and that's my responsibility. And I hope we had like a bunch of artists like Omar Effendim and a bunch of people who can just join together in this effort, so we can raise awareness, raise funds, and take this tour throughout US, the US, North America, Europe, and even the Far East. I mean, I'm going to Manila next month, to the Philippines, for example, before my stop in London. So the moral of the story, the power of people is so much stronger than people in power. We are the people, we are the Syrian people. I agree with Ragad, maybe the Syrian children today don't want to have to discuss freedom or human rights. They want to have school and medicine and food, but the essence of the whole human crisis that we are facing today, the core issue was because they asked for freedom, and they faced a vicious war that we are facing today, and we have millions of refugees, and our responsibility is to team up as artists, as human beings, to be their voice and do whatever it takes to save a Syrian child.
Malek, we have so many more questions to talk to you about, but luckily we have some extra time in our post show. Malika, how many more do you have stashed up back there on your laptop?
I can't even count.
Okay. What I really want to know, just very quickly, because we have 20 seconds, and I can say this to a composer because you know how long that is there music in your head the whole time?
The whole time.
What's going on right now?
Right now is going on a baby somewhere in Atma or in Rihaniya screaming freedom, love, harmony, Syria. That's what it is, because I'm holding something from Syria all the time.
All right, more from that. I know you want to talk to him more. I know you want to listen into more of the conversation. You can do that at stream.aljazeera.com. Let me tell you what we're going to be doing on the next show. So when we look at Pakistan's educational problems, you may well think of the teenage activist Malala Yousafzai, but with UNESCO reporting that more than half of the population in Pakistan can't read or write, we could be looking at the root of the educational problem there. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Hello again, this is the Streams Online post show. We've been talking about the award-winning Syrian-American composer and pianist Malek Jandali, about the role of art in activism and how he's using his music to help Syrian children. I see on your lapel you have 2 flags.
Yes.
This pretty much sums you up, right?
Yeah.
An American flag and a Syrian flag. Beautiful. It's hard not to want to talk to you about your music because you're very engaging when you play. I'm curious about how you compose. Do you do it on the piano? Do you use any technology to compose? How do you make music?
I always start with my piano in my studio, and then once I have the basic idea, I go into my workstation, which has Sibelius, the latest technology in music notation, and then from there I go into orchestration and basically adding all those colors. So I start with a basic let's say line or framework, and then I just paint with all those instruments, from the oboe to the strings to the French horn to the percussion, and that's what I'm working on now. Actually, it's a major symphony in 4 movements, which I'm going to record with one of the most respected symphonies in the world. I can't reveal the name yet.
Oh, why would you say that? And now you're going to torment us.
The suspense.
It's the suspense.
Yeah.
It's a 4-movement symphonic work inspired by the Syrian people. It's from the Syrian people to the Syrian people by the Syrian people.
Right. Arabic melodies in there?
Syrian melodies, folk melodies, from Aleppo to Kaframbal to Homs to Al-Raqqa. We used to have, for example, very serious composers in Syria. For example, Sheikh Ali Darwish, who used to be a very serious composer, and I'm using some of his melodies in my symphony. Just in a way, it's like an attempt to preserve my culture and my art, my Syrian art, because I really believe art is so much more elegant and powerful than politics. And to have this symphony, it's basically I'm preserving Aleppo after being destroyed, and I'm preserving the ancient mosque in Homs or the ancient church in Damascus. And it's just a way of doing my responsibility in a symphonic work that will go, hopefully, all around the world.
All right, we're looking forward to that.
Well,
seeing what that sounds like.
Speaking of all around the world, of course, we're also getting comments and questions from all around the world. Vinisha on Twitter says, art can reach people who wouldn't otherwise engage with humanitarian issues. You don't need to be a bleeding heart to help or donate. So I want to actually throw that to you, because you're doing something similar. You also just got off tour raising money for the Syrian situation. What do you think about the role of music and kind of opening up doors that maybe things like this might necessarily open up?
Well, I definitely think that that's the case. I mean, I've seen it happen in many different conflicts, not just the Syrian conflict, how somebody who might not feel a connection to something because it's happening so far away can hear a musician or an artist speak from the heart and paint a picture that they might not have otherwise thought about and change something in them. And so, yes, it might not be that the song itself is necessarily saving the life of a child, but you never know what that tipping point can become, when somebody hears something and decides to take on a new path in life because they were so inspired by that piece or that song or that poem. And with that, I just wanted to ask Malek, questions that I receive often from people, and so I figured I might as well bounce them back to you and get to hear your thoughts. 2 questions real quick. One is, of course, how do you know that these funds that you're raising are going to actually help people in Syria? Something people ask me often. And then 2, how do you, on a more personal note, navigate as an artist, working for a cause, working towards something that is so profound, but then also that inner ego of getting, the praise and the applause and as Femi said, groupies. How do you not let that affect you and your end goal of where you want to be with your music and how you want it to, to affect the lives of people around the world, especially the Syrian children? Yeah. Thank you, Umar.
Yeah, great 2 questions. Last time we met was at Harvard University. And most of the audience were smarter than both of us, probably, because they are all Harvard graduates. So at the end of my panel, I asked them, would you please stand up and be a human for the Syrian children? And it transformed the whole conference. So the first question regarding the funds, at the end of my concert, I asked my audience to do their homework and pick their own humanitarian organization. I don't embrace one in particular. That's the voice of the free Syrian children. Because if you ask them, they will not tell you, oh, only go to UNICEF or only go to Life. They will tell you, help us, because it's your human responsibility. And that's what I do. I'm humbled, and it's a big responsibility to be their voice. So I ask them, do your homework, pick your non-profit organization of your choice, and do whatever it takes to save Syrian children. So that's, I'm outside the money equation. Many people think, oh, I just raised $3 million. Big no-no. Second question, when you see your mom being beaten and your country being destroyed and ancient monuments and the Aleppo souks, which nobody dared to even touch, not the Crusaders, not the Ottomans, not the Mongols, nobody. I hope and wish that we won't have any egos and any personal agendas. And that's what will last, because anybody who had a personal agenda about being praised or having his own little self-interest will fail in the big scheme of a historic moment of the free Syrian
revolution. It's interesting you said that I was detecting some animosity around the way that people were gravitating towards you and towards the way that you were drawing attention to the humanitarian crisis in Syria. I was noticing some tension there. Am I imagining that, or was that very real for you?
Tension from last night, for example?
Not from last night, but tension from what you're doing as an artist.
I mean, what I'm doing, I'm just asking to save the Syrian children.
But so I understand that, but are you getting pushback? Are you getting critics?
Absolutely, you know.
Criticizing what you're doing. He's just a piano player, what does he know?
Absolutely, you always get that. You know, if everybody agrees with you, there's something wrong. So feedback, I always believe feedback is the breakfast of champions. I love to hear the other, story and the other side. I'm just doing my part. I'm just searching for beauty and truth, and I'm just being so truthful, being the voice of the free Syrian children. And I hope that I can be helped with other artists, other organizations, and this is a plea to any NGO and to the Syrian people and Syrian artists and artists all over the world to help us and join efforts so we can save the Syrian children. And I'm focusing only on the Syrian children. I don't want to discuss politics, and I don't want to discuss religion. Do whatever it takes to save a Syrian child.
Right. Malika, you have an option here.
Hazami wants to jump in, but I believe that's Hazami's voice. But I'd like to go to Amr. I'd like to go to Amr first. Actually, it's Ragad's voice. Ragad, we'll get to you in a second. But Amr, we haven't heard from you yet. You're in our hangout. Please go ahead.
One quick comment, and then I'm going to ask my question. But first of all, thank you very much, Malek Jandali, for your work. Everyone, I listen to your music all the time. It's very soothing and it's very heartwarming. And ideally, I think it's doing really good work for the Syrian children. I want to go back to a point that Femi mentioned when she called you a politician, or she supposedly thinks you're a politician. I don't think you're called a
I didn't call him a politician. I said that he does have political views.
Oh, he does have political views. Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. But I don't think you'd be considered a political view if you choose a side. I mean, it sounds like it, but it really isn't. If you're not a human being, if you support a regime that constantly bombs innocent children, destroying homes, religious sites for no apparent reason, just because someone's saying the word freedom. I mean, we grew up and were raised on what's it called, with certain inalienable rights, in which we abide by every day. And I think every human being should be raised to believe that he has a freedom, the freedom to express himself. And that's exactly what the Syrian people are doing, whether it's through art, whether it's through the word of mouth. And I guess my question is to you, Malek, is do you believe like your work has accomplished have anything, specifically the Syrian children inside Syria? We've been hearing a lot of talk about you visiting Altme and everything. What about the Syrian children inside Syria? Do you think they listen to your work? Do you think you've accomplished some sort of hope to these children?
It's a great question, and thank you for your comments. Actually, I went inside Syria, not only on Atme. I crossed the borders to meet Syrian children inside Syria, but sadly, due to this dictatorship, there's no electricity, there's no TV, there's no any way of communication. So the Syrian people are really facing a unprecedented humanitarian crisis. So how can we reach them? We can reach them by visiting them, or by doing whatever it takes to be their voice. And to answer your question, if you ask the Syrian children, what do you want? They're not going to discuss politics. They're going to discuss their human heart of being a free Syrian child, asking for peace, because we are the people of peace. Let me remind you, when Ramses came to Syria in 200 AD to launch a war on the Syrian people in Arabic said, we don't want war, harb. We want love, hub. Please delete the R in the middle, and let's have the first ever peace treaty in humankind history that was at the Battle of Kadesh. So I believe art and the soft power of music is the best way, and the reason is hope for a free future of the free Syrian children.
Everybody in the Hangout is going to hate me because I am wrapping up this conversation, but I'm going to wrap it up with a Twitter handle, @Malek Jandali. You cannot get it wrong. You do talk to people on Twitter all of the time. I can see conversations going back and forth, not necessarily agreeing with people, but it's a really intense, interesting conversation online, and also on your Facebook page. You have over 100,000 followers. I know that you're engaged, I know you're accessible, and I know you have to go. So wrapping this conversation up, thank you to the Hangout, thank you to our online community. Malek Jandali, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here on the stream.
It's my honor, thank you.
So we're going to move on with our next show. When you talk about Pakistan's education problems, many immediately think of the shooting of the teenage activist Malala Yousafzai. But with UNESCO reporting that more than half of the population can't read or write in Pakistan, how deeply rooted is the crisis, and does it go well beyond the Taliban? Good questions, but good questions for another day. Until then, we will see you online and leave you with the music of Malek Jandali. Thanks for watching.